story of how I was diagnosed with bipolar. My mental health journey is pretty extensive. It kind of started back when I was probably 15. I started dealing with kind of depression and anxiety, that kind of stuff, up until 2020 when I was diagnosed with bipolar 1. Now, for those that don't know, bipolar 1 is a mental illness where you have to have at least one manic episode that lasts around more than 7 days. And depression after that manic episode is pretty common. So I had that. And the story of how I had that is pretty wild. So grab your popcorn. So yeah, I was dealing with depression and anxiety. That's what I thought it was at that time. I didn't realize it was kind of the precursor to bipolar. So I went to the doctor, I got some help, and the GP put me on an antidepressant called Lexapro. Little did I know, if you have undiagnosed bipolar and you get put on an antidepressant, it can actually trigger your first manic episode. So I was 20 at this time, it's a little bit earlier than the age where you start to have manic episodes, but who knows when I would have had my first one. So anyway, it was kind of good that it happened, but I had the strongest manic episode I've ever had to this day. Was that couple weeks was the strongest one I've ever had. So it started off, so with my manic episodes, I money spend. I drain my bank account, I spend my savings. I spend thousands of dollars when I'm manic. So that's the main problem when I'm manic. And this particular instance, I went to the camping store, BCF or Anaconda, whichever one it was, and I spent $2,000 on camping gear and all that kind of stuff, and I disappeared into the middle of nowhere. I went camping for like 3 days, didn't tell anyone, just drove and drove for hours and hours until I ended up, I think it was the Grampians. So yeah, I bought everything you could think of that you would need for a camping trip. I bought a huge tent, a cooking stove, a camping cooking stove, utensils, pots, pans. I bought a kayak for when I went back. I didn't take that on the trip, but I bought a kayak that day as well. We'll get to that in a second. I bought everything pretty much that you could need. Now, on the way up driving, I actually drove through like a lake or something. You can see here, I actually drove through and got bogged, so I had to call RACV and they towed me out. Absolutely stupid, but I was manic. I wasn't thinking clearly. One of the nights I actually slept on the side of a cliff in my swag, listening to music, which was so dangerous looking back. But anyway, so after that little adventure, I drove home. And then the day I got home, I actually went on another adventure at home. I was still manic at this time. And so that kayak I bought the other day, I used that day, and I went fishing, but not actually fishing. When you are manic, you tend to get some crazy ideas. You think you're Albert Einstein. So I got an idea to tie my GoPro to the fishing line and cast it out and see what's under in the bay. So I'll show you guys some videos of what that was like. I was literally just looking under the water. There was heaps of fish and stuff. It was actually a pretty cool idea. You can kind of see the fish swimming up to the GoPro and that kind of stuff. I stayed out there for probably 10 hours, I reckon, 9 hours. Just getting videos of under the bay with my GoPro. Now, after that little adventure, I finally got into a psychiatrist. So I went and saw him, and he pretty much diagnosed me with bipolar in minutes. I fit the criteria perfectly. I had done everything that someone with bipolar would do. So he diagnosed me with that, put me on a medication, and yeah, I was pretty much stable until now, pretty much. Yeah, 5 years later, I've been on that same medication. Yeah, so that's my story of how I was diagnosed with bipolar.